Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Please let the people know that we are live. I need to shout out a new member by the name of Ruth. Ruth, I'm sorry I did not shout you out earlier, love. I was, clearly we had a breaking news and we were right and focus. So welcome everybody. Let me let the people know that we are live. We are live. So let me tell you, in the period that we were not live, I was pulling up some more details about what is going on. I was able to find a channel that is going to be streaming the press conference. Sounds like there's going to be a couple people here streaming the press conference, but it has not started. We'll get to that in a minute. I have a name of a person that's been arrested, which is what we were looking for, but we don't have a mug shot yet. Okay. So shout out to everybody for those that are coming through. Let me give you guys a quick little just update. So this morning, breaking news, we have that there has been multiple arrests on the Matthew Perry drug overdose. The supplier sounds like a doctor, sounds like some dealers were arrested as well. And the numbers were going anywhere between one, and then now we know it's up to five, at least five that we know that have been arrested. And this is through ABC News that there have been five charged, right? However, there haven't been there hasn't been a mug shot or anything. But what I was able to find through the New York Times is that we have a name. We have a person's name. And of course, you see the name, you're Google searching to see, well, who is this person? And nothing came about other than this article, which tells me we don't have a mugshot. The internet's, we're not there yet, but I'm sure that more details are going to be released at this press conference. So the authorities in Los Angeles have made arrests as part of their investigation of the death into Matthew Perry, according to two people with knowledge of the inquiry. The authorities, who have been trying to find out who supplied the ketamine that was in Perry's system when he was found dead in a hot tub last October at his Los Angeles home, arrested a woman by the name, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, Jasveen, is it Sangha? Jasveen Sangha, in connection, I've just highlighted her name, in connection with the case, according to the two people who were granted anonymity to discuss an ongoing investigation. More details, including the roles played by others in the case, are expected to be released at a news conference in Los Angeles on Thursday morning. Yeah, and you think it's two physicians? I was thinking that this name, I was like, maybe she's a physician, but it's a woman that was arrested in connection to the to this case. To this case. Are we modless? No worries. My mods will get here when they get here. I did start early. Shout out to everybody. So I figure we got a couple of minutes before the actual press conference, but we have this so far. So it sounds like we have a total of five people that have been arrested. We have one of them is a woman by the name of Jasveen Sangha. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. um that is what we have so far right now. And let me let everybody know that we are live on the Discord. Open chat. Everyone, we are live now. Okay. That is what we have so far. So Sky News is going to be airing some of the press conference right now with Matthew Perry. Where did it? Looking for my link, y'all. I'm looking for my link. Here we go. News Nation as well is going to be airing it. Here we go. Getting this going. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Yes, the five people, which include two doctors, have been charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine, a federal source tells ABC. Thank you. No worries, Pika. We know you here, girl. I started early, so no worries. It's not like we need a mod. Y'all know how we do it here. So sad what Matthew Perry went through. Absolutely. So we have, the news sources are creeping up, and we're getting more information as things are coming about. I also went to the local news live press conference. Here we go. Here we go. Here's another one. The Associated Press is also on it as well. We have that on, which is set to start here in a couple minutes. On live press conference after arrest made in connection with Matthew Perry. Okay. And so we're going to get more details. I'm curious to know a lot of it. I know, right? Today has now become soon, right? LOL. Welcome, everybody. Guys, do me a favor and support the channel by hitting the like button, please, and thank you. If you're coming in, welcome, beautiful Messy Ball, everybody. If you're watching us from Twitter, I don't know how many folks we got on Twitter watching us, but let me check. Shout out to everybody over there on the Twitter. We got 19 people out there. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching us and supporting my little platform. I appreciate you guys.
First speaker is U.S. Attorney.
Here we go.
Quick question. Is any Spanish language media here? Any hands raised? Okay, good. So Martin Estrada, U.S. Attorney, will be first speaker. He'll be followed by Los Angeles Police Chief Dominic Choi, followed by DEA Administrator Ann Milgram, and then Matthew Shields, the Acting Inspector in Charge, United States Postal Inspection Service, Los Angeles Division. And then the U.S. Attorney will make some remarks in Spanish for Spanish language media, and then we'll take some questions. So we'll be here in a few minutes.
They are prepping, guys. They're prepping. Esther, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you.
How is my head in your shot? Because, when there's talking for a while, I might sit just to help you. Thank you.
They're still setting up, you guys. They're still setting up.
Whoever has a label mark across the street, they're going to throw it. There's a couple cars over there. You call me now. 11, I think.
Welcome, everybody. Yeah, please do your sound check. We want to hear everything. Exactly, Evil. I want to see a mugshot. That's what I want to see, because I'm sure that there's a lot coming about her. There was a woman that was arrested, for those that are coming through.
It is what it is. I don't care. You have what you
Is that really her, though? Is that really her? That's my concern. Is that really her?
Okay, this will be the final audio check and the white balance. Audio check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Audio check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Audio check. 1, 2, 3. Checking audio. 1, 2, 3.
It works.
Audio check. 1, 2, 3. Audio check. 1, 2, 3.
Her name is
checking audio. 1, 2, 3.
Jasveen Sangha. That's her name.
Audio check. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, that's her name. It's public information, not doxing, you guys. And it's Sang, not Sing.
Audio check. 1, 2, 3. Good. Okay.
This is it right here, guys. That's her. It's a woman. But we don't know. There's no, I don't know what her nationality is. There's not a lot of details. This is public information. It's all over the news. This is the name of the woman that was arrested. One of them. There's 5 people. All right, let me shut up now.
Good morning. My name is Martin Estrada. I'm the United States Attorney based in Los Angeles. We're here today with our law enforcement partners to announce federal criminal charges related to the death of the actor Matthew Perry. Following Mr. Perry's death in October of last year, law enforcement, my office, and our partners represented on this stage began an in-depth, wide-ranging investigation. That investigation has revealed a broad, underground criminal network responsible for distributing large quantities of ketamine to Mr. Perry and others. This network included a live-in assistant, various go-betweens, 2 medical doctors, and a major source of drug supply known as, quote, the ketamine queen. We charged 5 defendants in this matter. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more. I'm going to talk about the indictment, the allegations, and the charges in more detail. On October 28, 2023, Mr. Perry was found deceased in his home. An autopsy was conducted following his death. That autopsy showed that he had died due to the acute effects of ketamine. Ketamine is a controlled substance. It has some legitimate uses, but it is also used illegally. It is used by people seeking to disassociate from reality. It can cause serious health effects, serious health problems, including loss of consciousness, including spikes in blood pressure, and including respiratory issues that can deprive the brain of oxygen. For that reason, it is a drug that must be administered by medical professionals, and the patient must be monitored closely. That did not occur here. This investigation focused on who supplied the ketamine to Mr. Perry. As many of you know, Mr. Perry struggled with addiction in the past. And on many occasions, he sought help for his addiction issues. The investigation revealed that in the fall of 2023, Mr. Perry fell back into addiction, and these defendants took advantage to profit for themselves. The 2 lead defendants in this case are defendants Salvador Plasencia and defendant Jasveen Sangha. First, I'll talk about defendant Plasencia. Defendant Plasencia was a medical doctor. He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry. Over 2 months, from September to October 2023, they distributed approximately 20 vials of ketamine to Mr. Perry in exchange for $55,000 in cash. Defendant Plasencia saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. He wrote in a text message in September 2023, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." He also stated in text messages that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's sole source of supply. He wrote in a text message that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's, quote, "go-to for drugs." As a doctor, defendant Plasencia knew full well the danger of what he was doing. In fact, on one occasion, he injected Mr. Perry with ketamine, and he saw Mr. Perry freeze up and his blood pressure spike. Despite that, he left additional vials of ketamine for defendant Iwamasa to administer to Mr. Perry. Of course, defendant Iwamasa had no medical training to speak of. Defendant Placentia knew what he was doing was harming Mr. Perry. He had spoken to another patient in mid-October 2023, and he told that patient that Mr. Perry was spiraling out of control with his addiction. Nonetheless, Defendant Placentia continued to offer ketamine to Mr. Perry. Likewise, Defendant Sangha knew what she was doing was harming defendants and also Mr. Perry. She took advantage of Mr. Perry by selling large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023. She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash. She worked with a broker, Defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, Defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine. Sangha and the broker, Defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. In a text message, the broker wrote, quote, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing this." Defendant Sangha sold the batch of ketamine that resulted in Mr. Perry's death on October 28th. Officers later searched Defendant Sangha's home. During that search, they found what amounted to a drug-selling emporium. They found 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax and other illegally obtained prescription drugs, and drug-selling paraphernalia, including scales and ledgers. As I mentioned, the defendants in this case knew what they were doing was wrong. When they'd refer to the ketamine, they used coded language. They'd refer to it using terms such as, quote, Dr. Pepper, or quote, bots, or quote, cans. Also, defendants Placentia and Chavez, as medical doctors, knew full well this was not the proper way to administer ketamine, and they even talked about that in their exchanges.
That's crazy.
And defendant Sangha also knew that she was doing something that caused great risk to Mr. Perry. In fact, during this investigation, we learned that several years before, in 2019, defendant Sangha had sold ketamine to another customer. That person died the same day. And a family member of that person sent a message to defendant Sangha telling her the cause of death was ketamine. Nonetheless, defendant Sangha continued selling drugs, including the ketamine that ultimately killed Mr. Perry. That other victim was a person named Cody McGlory. He died in 2019. As a result of this investigation, we have filed a drug distribution charge related to the death of Mr. McGlory.
My God.
After Mr. Perry died, these defendants tried to cover up what they had done. On October 28th, after reading news reports of Mr. Perry's death, defendant Sangha wrote a text message to defendant Fleming saying, quote, delete all our messages. Likewise, after Mr. Perry's death, defendant Placentia falsified medical records and notes to try to make it look like what he was doing was legitimate. It was not. We have filed numerous federal charges against the 5 defendants. These charges include conspiracy to distribute ketamine, distribution of ketamine resulting in death, maintaining drug-involved premises for that drug-selling emporium the defendant Sangha had,
Oh my God.
altering and falsifying records related to a federal investigation for those false medical notes and records that defendant Placentia made, and multiple other drug trafficking counts. Of course, the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Oh my God.
The penalties
That's-
these defendants face
Wow.
are very significant. With regard to defendant Placentia, the statutory maximum sentence he faces is 120 years in federal prison. And with regard to defendant Sangha, the statutory maximum she faces is life in prison. By filing these extensive and serious charges, we are sending a clear message. If you are in the business of selling dangerous drugs, we will hold you accountable for the deaths that you cause. This is nothing new for us. Since 2022, my office has filed over 60 cases against drug dealers who caused the death of another person. These cases are known as death resulting cases. They are labor-intensive cases, and we work with our law enforcement partners, including ones represented here today, to bring those cases. Our office is a national leader in bringing those cases. They're very important because every victim's life counts. If you are in the drug selling business and you're selling dangerous drugs, you are playing roulette with other people's lives, just like
Exactly.
the defendants here did to Mr. Perry. Defendants nowadays are on full notice that the products they sell could result in the death of another person. Therefore, if you're in the drug business, and despite these risks, you continue in the drug business, you are pushed by greed to gamble with other people's lives.
Yes.
Realize we will hold you accountable.
Yes.
I want to thank our partners in this case, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. These investigators did a phenomenal job digging into the case, looking at every angle to develop a case, a strong case against not only those who killed Mr. Perry, but also Mr. McLaurin. I want to note that these cases are important and we'll continue to collaborate with our law enforcement partners to bring them, to ensure that justice is brought to every victim. And
Yes.
finally, let me thank the prosecutors responsible for the investigation and the prosecution of this case. Those are Assistant United States Attorneys Ian Yanello and Xiaohan Tsai. And now I'd like to introduce Chief of Los Angeles Police Department, Dominic Choi.
These drug dealers had killed before, you guys. This man fell victim to this as well.
All right. Good morning, and thank you, Martine.
God.
You know, while it's tragedy that brings us all here together, I'm happy to stand here knowing that these dangerous individuals are no longer on the streets and they won't be able to harm anyone else. The Los Angeles Police Department and our partners here today, we're committed to investigating all cases like this, and it's regardless of someone's background or socioeconomic status. And just with all of our cases, this investigation was done impartially. We let the facts drive this investigation, and those facts led us to a group of individuals who were responsible for supplying and distributing to Mr. Perry narcotics that led to his unfortunate and untimely death. The group standing here today, it's a prime example how our partnerships and our collaboration can yield meaningful results. I want to thank LAPD, our Robbery Homicide Division, who's standing in the back there, the U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada and his team, the DEA and her team, as well as the U.S. Postal Inspection Service and their team for their hard work, diligence, and real patience. Now, I know people think this took a long time, but there was a lot of work, a lot of investigative strategies that went into this to make sure that there's a solid case and that we can pursue this in the courts. Our relationship with our federal partners, it helps us ensure that these criminals will have meaningful sentences and be an example for anyone that is willing to risk or jeopardize distributing and supplying unlawful or narcotics to anyone. And I just really want people to know that that is the message. You cannot get away with this regardless of your background or socioeconomic status. Breaking the law is breaking the law, and you are dangerous and you are jeopardizing lives. So thank you all of my partners for being involved in this and bringing us to where we are at today. And at this time, I'd like to introduce DEA Administrator Ann Milgram.
Good morning. Today we announced charges brought against 5 individuals.
Their
who
internet
together
is pretty
are
bad,
responsible
guys.
for the death of Matthew Perry. Each of the defendants played a key role in his death. They falsely prescribed, sold, or injected the ketamine that caused Matthew Perry's tragic death. In the United States, Most forms of ketamine are only approved by the Food and Drug Administration for anesthesia. A nasal spray version is approved for treatment of depression, but only in a certified medical setting. Here, Matthew Perry sought treatment for depression and anxiety and went to a local clinic where he became addicted to intravenous ketamine. When clinic doctors refused to increase his dosage, he turned to unscrupulous doctors who saw Perry as a way to make quick money. Dr. Plasencia and Dr. Chavez violated the oath they took to care for their patients. Instead of do no harm, they did harm so that they could make more money. Without performing any medical evaluation or monitoring, they supplied Matthew Perry with large amounts of ketamine in exchange for large sums of money, charging Perry $2,000 for a vial that cost Dr. Chavez approximately $12. As Matthew Perry's ketamine addiction grew, he wanted more, and he wanted it faster and cheaper. That is how he ended up buying from street dealers who sold the ketamine that ultimately led to his death. In doing so, he followed the arc that we have tragically seen with many others, whose substance use disorder begins in a doctor's office and ends in the street. Perry turned to his street dealer, Eric Fleming, who sourced his ketamine from a drug trafficker known as the ketamine queen, Jasveen Sangha.
Oh my God.
The ketamine supplied by Sangha would ultimately be the dose that took Matthew Perry's life. Sangha knew that the ketamine she supplied could be deadly, since in 2019 she had sold ketamine to Cody McLaury, who died at the age of 33. But despite this knowledge, she continued to sell ketamine and methamphetamine throughout Los Angeles. Matthew Perry's journey began with unscrupulous doctors who abused their position of trust because they saw him as a payday, and it ended with street dealers who sold him ketamine in unmarked vials. The desperation that led Perry to these individuals was not met with help, as it should have been from the doctors, but instead it was met with exploitation. Exploitation by those who should have guided him toward help. This betrayal of trust is at the heart of this tragedy. Since 2023, DEA has investigated nearly 500 drug poisoning and overdose cases just like Matthew Perry's. We run a national initiative known as OD Justice, where we work with our state and local law enforcement partners to conduct investigations after someone has passed away. And it is important to note that the national model we today have in every 50 state across the United States is based on the work that started here in Los Angeles. We began this work with our partners in the Los Angeles Police Department and with other local police departments and sheriff's offices in California, in the Los Angeles area, and with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And today it stands as our national model for this critical work. Together, as part of OD Justice, we work to bring justice for the lives that have been lost and to stop others from dying. Regardless of the size or scope of a drug distribution network, the DEA will work nonstop to uncover and disrupt this illegal activity, and in this case, the deadly activity. I want to close by noting that Matthew Perry's death is not just a tragic overdose. After his 2020 book openly discussed his struggles with substance use disorder, Matthew Perry told podcast host Tom Power that he would prefer to be remembered for helping people rather than for his work on Friends as Chandler Bing. And so perhaps what has happened and the tragic details that we are discussing today can help others and save lives. I want to thank the Los Angeles Police Department, the United States Postal Inspection Service, and the United States Attorney's Office in the Central District of California for their tremendous partnership and their outstanding dedication to this case. I also have the privilege of serving every single day with the men and women of the DEA, And today I want to particularly recognize the outstanding work of our Los Angeles Field Division, as well as our diversion investigators who tirelessly worked on this case to bring justice to the victims and the families. Thank you. It's now my privilege to introduce Postal Inspector Shields.
Oh man. It's like we're finding out more information, guys. It's just insane.
Good morning, and again, welcome. I'd like to thank U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada for his tireless dedication to protecting the residents of the Central District of California and his partnership with the Postal Inspection Service. As the nation's oldest law enforcement agency, the Postal Inspection Service has had a long, proud, and successful history of combating criminals who misuse our nation's postal system and cause harm to our employees and customers. This is our mission. In this case, our agency, in partnership with the Los Angeles Police Department, the Los Angeles Drug Enforcement Administration, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, worked to seize, search, and analyze evidence that has culminated in arrests and a dismantling of the group that is responsible for providing the ketamine and the reported contributed to the death of Matthew Perry. In this case, these individuals knowingly and willfully distributed ketamine to Mr. Perry as he struggled to overcome addiction, which ultimately led to Mr. Perry's tragic demise. Unfortunately, every day in this country, families are grieving for their loved ones lost to drug overdoses. We want these families and the American public to know that the Postal Service will not be an unwitting accomplice to anyone using the U.S. mail to distribute illegal drugs or drug paraphernalia.
Oh man.
The Inspection Service
This is
continues to
crazy.
work tirelessly to rid the mail of illicit drugs, fight drug trafficking and the associated violence, preserve the integrity of the mail, and most importantly, provide a safe environment to postal employees, customers, and the American public. The Postal Inspection Service is turning the tide against drug dealers. Detecting and stopping their shipments is only the beginning. Tracing illegal drugs back to the source and shutting them down is the ultimate mission. Once again, a tremendous thank you to our partners in federal and state and local law enforcement, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office, for their continued collaboration and hard work in support of this mission. Thank you.
I'll now do brief remarks in Spanish, and then we'll do questions and answers. Where are the Spanish language reporters? Hold up your hands. Okay, great. Hoy anunciamos cargos criminales federales en conexión con la muerte del actor Matthew Perry. Nuestra investigación ha revelado una gran red criminal responsable por el tráfico de ketamina en grandes cantidades.
Do you guys want to hear it in Spanish too?
Un asistente personal para el señor Perry, 2 médicos y una narcotraficante conocida como la reina de la ketamina. Hemos archivado cargos federales contra 5 acusados. Estos acusados vendieron ketamina al actor Matthew Perry.
Okay.
Y vendieron ketamina en grandes cantidades. 70 viales.
I mean, they're saying, I'm going to mute it. They're saying the same thing. Okay. So he's repeating what he said earlier in, from English to Spanish. Okay. So let me just say this. This is what we have details so far. We have 5 people that have been arrested, 2 of which are doctors, one of which is, I guess, she's the distributor, I guess the handler of this situation. So I was able to pull the press release from the Department of Justice. 5 defendants, including 2 doctors, charged in connection with actor Matthew Perry's fatal drug overdose. So Jasveen Sangha, 41, aka the ketamine queen. That's what they called her, the ketamine queen of North Hollywood. Dr. Salvador Plasencia, Dr. P of Santa Monica. So the ketamine queen and Dr. Plasencia are charged with 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine. The ketamine queen also is charged with 1 count of maintaining drug-involved premises, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamines, and 1 count of possession with intent to distribute ketamine, and 5 counts of distribution of ketamine. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the press conference where he was kind of breaking this down, because if I heard this correctly, one of the dealers in here had already killed somebody in a previous case. And so the way this is an organization, okay? This is what happened. These people knew that Matthew Perry was struggling, and so they targeted him, okay, and targeted him for his money and basically gave him drugs. That's what they did. So I like, wow. And they have messages that support this. They have messages that support, him setting him up with the drugs and stuff. I cannot, cannot believe this. Like, that's just crazy to me. Let me go back and see. I think he's done with the statement in Spanish. Hold up.
Personas.
Yep, he's
So now
done.
do question and answer. Any
Questions?
Yes.
My first question is, the person that found Matthew Perry in the hot tub, is that also one of the people who's being charged in this case? Is that the assistant?
I didn't hear that. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the assistant that's being charged in this case, is that also the person that found Matthew Perry in the hot tub?
So the personal assistant we charged is defendant Kenneth Iwamasa. He was the one live-in assistant for Mr. Perry.
Did law enforcement
Yes.
look into
Yes.
the doctor, when the patient tragically died in 2019, did law enforcement look into that death when they found out the patient died?
I can't comment on that. What I can say is that through this investigation, we were able to connect defendant Sangha to that death in 2019 and file a charge related to that to vindicate the victim, Cody McClory.
Are there any details about the search?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, and maybe this is for DA Administrator Milgram, but can you talk a little bit about the line between legitimate ketamine therapy treatment and was, Matthew Perry ever receiving legitimate ketamine therapy treatment? And then when did that cross over? Were the defendants involved in that clinic where he was receiving legitimate treatment, if that's the case?
So let me say this.
Yes.
In this case, we are not talking about legitimate ketamine treatment. We're talking about two doctors who abused the trust they had, abused their licenses to put another person's life at risk. 5 defendants who, as I mentioned, knew what they were doing was wrong. In fact, one of them had sold ketamine that resulted in the death of another person in 2019. Nothing about what we see today was legitimate, and that's why we filed criminal charges.
Was he ever in?
Yes.
Is this the beginning of an enforcement effort specifically against ketamine? I know you mentioned past cases, 60 cases, and DA mentioned it as well. Is there going to be a focus specifically on ketamine?
I think what you've seen is that this is not the beginning, but a continuation of an enforcement effort against synthetic drugs of all kinds. Synthetic drugs, ketamine, but also methamphetamine, fentanyl, are killing people each and every day. We in law enforcement and with the U.S. Attorney's Office are on a campaign to address this and send a message that if you sell drugs, it results in the death of another person, the consequences will be severe.
Any details about the search warrant?
¿Nos puede decir de los doctores que fueron detenidos?
Hay 2 doctores que son los acusados en este caso, el doctor Plasencia y el doctor Chávez. Los 2 están acusados en este caso. El doctor Plasencia fue arrestado hoy en la mañana. El doctor Chávez ya ha sido preso y también ya ha declarado su culpabilidad.
Any details about the search warrant as to when it was executed, besides the drugs, any other items that may have been seized or recovered?
So with regard to defendant Sangha, that search warrant was executed earlier this year. During that search, as I mentioned, we found not just 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax, and other illegally prescribed drugs, and drug-selling paraphernalia. As I mentioned, it was a drug-selling emporium. You have your hand up in the middle.
Yes, Nikki Smith with Entertainment Tonight. Are there any other celebrities involved in this investigation? And if so, who?
I've mentioned the defendants in this case. We have 5 defendants.
Okay.
But the lead defendants are defendants Jasveen Sangha, Salvador Plasencia. We also have defendants Mark Chavez, another medical doctor. We have defendant Kenneth Iwamasa and defendant Eric Fleming. We look at the evidence. We see where that goes. We don't charge people based on whether they're celebrities or not celebrities.
Great.
We charge them based on the evidence.
That's right. Sit down, lady. That's right.
Was getting at before is in the autopsy report that was made public about his death, there were 2 physicians who were listed as being involved in Mr. Perry's treatment prior to his death. One of them was involved in what appeared to be legitimate therapeutic use of ketamine. Is there any indication that the people who were doing the off-label recreational use were connected with the legitimate therapy he was getting at any point? And
So
then
what I'll
second-
tell you is,
Yeah.
before we get to your second, we will tell you is that in our cases, we go where the evidence leads us. We also respect patient privacy. What I will say is an autopsy was conducted. That autopsy showed Mr. Perry died as a result of the acute effects of ketamine. I won't go into further detail about Mr. Perry's personal history.
That's right.
Yes.
And then were any of the five charged on your radar prior to Perry's overdose?
I can't comment on that. What I will say is the investigation is ongoing, but what we're announcing today are serious federal charges against these five defendants, supported by an extensive investigation.
Sir, can you clarify the relationship?
This woman's had been patiently had her hand up. Yes.
Yes, Chavez was detained. When was he detained and was it related to this case as well?
Defendant Chavez is a defendant in this case.
Right.
We filed this morning a plea agreement for defendant Chavez. So he's already not entered, but we have a filed plea agreement for him. Two other defendants, defendant Iwamasa, have also signed plea agreements. That plea agreement has been entered. And defendant Fleming has signed a plea agreement. That plea agreement has been entered. As I mentioned, the two lead defendants in this case are defendants Placencia and defendant Sanya, who were arrested this morning. Yes, sir. No. There's the patient man behind you. There's Homer.
Fiscal, ¿nos puede identificar a los 5 detenidos y nos puede relacionar cómo comenzó la investigación con la vena de la ketamina en el 2019?
Oh, okay.
Sí,
That's a good
hay
question.
5 acusados y ya nombré los acusados. Hoy en la mañana 2 fueron arrestados. Fue la acusada Sanya y el acusado Placencia, que fue un doctor médico.
Sir, can
Yes.
Yeah, there were reports this morning that the investigation could have uncovered other celebrities who may have been buying from this same network. Is that accurate? Can you give us any sense of the customers that they would be?
So I can't comment on reports that are out there, their accuracy or inaccuracy. What I can tell you are the facts that we developed through our investigation. Those facts are what I've related to you this morning. Yes.
You mentioned the queen of ketamine out of North Hollywood. What does that actually mean? How big was the network of people to whom she was selling narcotics and specifically ketamine?
What I can say about defendant Sanya, known as the ketamine queen, was that she was a major source of supply for ketamine to others, as well as Mr. Perry. I think the fact that we searched her house and found a drug selling emporium, including 80 vials of ketamine,
Wow.
would strongly suggest she was selling to many other individuals.
Can you give a number, dozens, tens?
I cannot, unfortunately, a number, no.
Any evidence as far as this has gone
You,
outside?
let me, the gentleman there in the back.
Extra TV, what has been Matthew's parents or family's reaction to the news coming out today?
So I won't comment on specific statements made by victims' families. We value confidentiality. What I will say is that the work of our office is victim-driven. We work with victims, including their families, each and every day, not just on this case, but on all our cases, including the over 60 death-resulting cases I mentioned earlier. We have been in communication, and I will leave it at that. Yes.
Hello, sir. Are all the defendants American citizens, and where were they sourcing their drugs?
Oh, it's a good
What I
question.
can say is that all the defendants, actually, I can't comment on citizenship at this time. I can't comment on the sourcing either. I've given you the facts in terms of the drug selling.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the death of Mr. McClure, the other thing, you see that his death is also a ketamine overdose. Is that investigation into his death linked the investigation with Perry, or was it only after the death of Perry that you realized the link with Mr. McClure's death?
Sure. It was through the investigation in this case, as the investigators did a thorough job, followed every lead, pulled every string to see what had occurred. They learned about the extent of defendant Sanya's criminal conduct and learned about the sale in 2019. And because of that investigation, we have filed a charge related to the death of victim McClure. And that's important because we want to vindicate all victims who suffer these types of tragedies.
Quick follow-up.
I'll do 2 more questions.
Quick follow-up. Do you have any reason to believe that this so-called queen of ketamine is linked to any more deaths? Are there any more investigations and any more possible that she could be linked to?
I think, as I mentioned, we've linked her to sales of ketamine, which resulted in at least 2 deaths. We searched her home. We found a drug selling emporium. I can't comment. I can't speculate on things such as what you're suggesting. I will say, in this case, she is facing very significant federal charges, including a charge that carries a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence. Yes, sir.
Were these 5 continuing to sell ketamine or other drugs after Perry's death?
I can't comment on that in terms of where they were selling.
No, like in terms of afterwards. Were they
What I can say is that we searched the home of one of the defendants following Mr. Perry's death. She had 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills of methamphetamine, cocaine,
Wow.
bottles of Xanax.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Can you just clarify the relation? Really, did the doctors work with the street dealers specifically, or was that a
That's a good
separate
question.
sale of ketamine, or were they connected? To
So last question, because you've been so patient. We charge a conspiracy here. The conspiracy is against all 5 defendants for selling ketamine to Mr. Perry. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Oh
ladies and
my
gentlemen. The
God.
Press release is out. It's online. We've emailed it. It's on social media. So.
Okay, let me just say, other than the internet and the Wi-Fi that they were having issues, that was a pretty good press conference. I mean, they really did detail things and answered some questions. So I want to go back, guys, because let me tell you guys a little bit. I am like processing this information, and I don't know if I got everything down that he basically said. So we're going to go back a little bit. You guys are asking me to give you guys a little summary, and it's just so much information that I'm consuming at this point, and I'm a little surprised. I'm not going to like lie to you. It's so much. Gypsy, thank you so much for the $10. Shout out to you. Says shout out to Rabbit and Mods. Additional shout out to Tommy. Yes, and the Light Boat for all that they do to spread awareness and community and connection. Shout out to Tommy. Hopefully he talks about this because he's really, he touches on topics like this. Thank you so much for the 10 love. Shout out to you. It was a lot, y'all. I'm still trying to understand. So I'm going to go back a little bit because I want to make sure I understand what I heard, what he said, and I have notes. And this is like, I guess, a whole organization that targeted, or a drug little group that targeted Matthew Perry specifically, and they have messages to support that, and it involved his assistant. Like, what is going on? Let me play. All right. See if I can. Oh, hold up.
Ketamine to Mr.
Let me go back a little bit.
Wide-ranging investigation. That investigation has revealed a broad underground criminal network responsible for distributing large quantities of ketamine to Mr. Perry and others. This network included a live-in assistant, various go-betweens, 2 medical doctors, and a major source of drug supply known as, quote, the ketamine queen. We charged 5 defendants in this matter. These defendants took advantage of Mr. Perry's addiction issues to enrich themselves. They knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more. I'm going to talk about the indictment, the allegation.
Their internet was so bad, and I get some of you guys said the sound quality was so bad too. Let me see if I can go to a better one. Let's see if this one's better.
Perry's addiction issues to enrich
Here we
themselves.
go.
They knew what they were doing was wrong.
Their internet is
They
bad.
knew what they were doing was risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways.
Yes.
In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
Better? Let me know.
I'm going to talk about the indictment, the allegations, and the charges in more detail. On October 28, 2023, Mr. Perry was found deceased in his home. An autopsy was conducted following his death. That autopsy showed that he had died due to the acute effects of ketamine. Ketamine is a controlled substance. It has some legitimate uses, but it is also used illegally. It is used by people seeking to disassociate from reality. It can cause serious health effects, serious health problems, including loss of consciousness, including spikes in blood pressure, and including respiratory issues that can deprive the brain of oxygen. For that reason, it is a drug that must be administered by medical professionals, and the patient must be monitored closely. That did not occur here. This investigation focused on who supplied the ketamine to Mr. Perry. As many of you know, Mr. Perry struggled with addiction in the past. On many occasions, he sought help for his addiction issues. The investigation revealed that in the fall of 2023, Mr. Perry fell back into addiction, and these defendants took advantage to profit for themselves. The two lead defendants in this case are defendants Salvador Plasencia and defendant Jasveen Sangha. First, I'll talk about defendant Plasencia. Defendant Plasencia was a medical doctor. He worked with another medical doctor, defendant Mark Chavez, to obtain ketamine. He then worked
two medical doctors working together to obtain ketamine. Okay, I will try, Renee. I will try. Let me get to this part, and then I'll go to the questions after that. Because yeah, the sound quality, and I know that it had like some Wi-Fi issues. If you guys were having a hard time, so was I. So please note that.
Worked with Mr. Perry's live-in assistant, defendant Kenneth Iwamasa, to distribute that ketamine to Mr. Perry.
So there was an assistant, a live-in assistant of Matthew Perry, and that assistant was working with these doctors to get the ketamine to Matthew Perry. Y'all heard that, right?
Over 2 months, from September to October 2023, they distributed approximately 20 vials of ketamine to Mr. Perry in exchange for $55,000 in cash.
$55,000 in cash over a 2-month period. It's a live-in assistant who basically became a live-in dealer. Oh man, oh man.
Defendant Plasencia saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. He wrote in a text message in September 2023, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." He also stated in text messages that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's sole source of supply. He wrote in a text message that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's, quote, go-to for drugs.
Hold up. Who are these text messages? I missed this part, y'all. Give me 1 sec.
Defendant Plasencia saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry.
So defendant Plasencia is Dr. Plasencia. That's who it is. I think it's Plasencia or Plasencia. The way it's spelled is Plasencia when I'm looking at this. He saw this as an opportunity to benefit from this. This is the doctor. The doctor.
He wrote in a text message in September 2023, quote, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." He also stated in text messages that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's sole source of supply. He wrote in a text message that he wanted to be Mr. Perry's, quote, go-to for drugs. As a doctor, defendant Plasencia knew full well the danger of what he was doing.
Yes, he did. He was a doctor, and he's talking about how he wanted to be his full-on person, and how much will this fool play?
In fact, on one occasion, he injected Mr. Perry with ketamine, and he saw Mr. Perry freeze up and his blood pressure spike. Despite that, he left additional vials of ketamine for defendant Iwamasa to administer to Mr. Perry. Of course, defendant Iwamasa.
So he leaves additional vials for the assistant to give to Matthew Perry. This guy, like, I'm sorry, what the hell is this all about?
Had no medical training to speak of. Defendant Plasencia knew what he was doing was harming Mr. Perry. He had spoken to another patient in mid-October 2023, and he told that patient that Mr. Perry was spiraling out of control with his addiction. Nonetheless, defendant Plasencia continued to offer ketamine to Mr. Perry.
Greed, money.
Likewise, defendant Sangha knew what she was doing was harming defendants and also Mr. Perry.
Yes.
She took advantage of Mr. Perry by selling large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023.
So let me understand this correctly. Matthew Perry already had a doctor for the ketamine. In addition to that, his assistant was seeing these two doctors to get this other ketamine. So, like, it's a lot of ketamine, guys. In addition to just being given vials or whatever, nobody's monitoring this. If I'm understanding this correctly, because he was already seeing a doctor for his addictions.
She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash.
Oh my
She worked with a
God.
broker, defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine. Sonia and the broker, defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. In a text message, the broker wrote, quote, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing this."
So the ketamine queen said he wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it unless there was a profit. Hold up. There's just so many webs and things tied into this. Let me go back a little bit.
Large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023. She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash. She worked with a broker, defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine. Sonia and the broker, defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. In a text message, the broker wrote, quote, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing this." Defendant Sonia sold the batch of ketamine that resulted in Mr. Perry's death on October 28th. Officers later searched defendant Sonia's home. During that search, they found what amounted to a drug-selling emporium. They found 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax and other illegally obtained prescription drugs, and drug-selling paraphernalia, including scales and ledgers.
That's the question, Renee, is how that they didn't answer that. I'm going back and I'm thinking, how did they come about? I mean, it's not hard to find a doctor like that. You know what I mean? It's not, but to me is who else has this impacted, right? Because I know Matthew Perry because of the name, but it had to have hurt other people. And it sounds like there was a death of another person in an unrelated case. So one of the dealers had already killed somebody before, if that makes sense.
As I mentioned, the defendants in this case knew what they were doing was wrong. When they'd refer to the ketamine, they used coded language. They'd refer to it using terms such as, quote, Dr. Pepper, or quote, bots, or quote, cans. Also, defendants Placentia and Chavez, as medical doctors, knew full well this was not the proper way to administer ketamine, and they even talked about that in their exchanges.
Wow.
And defendant Sonia also knew that she was doing something that caused great risk to Mr. Perry. In fact, during this investigation, we learned that several years before, in 2019, defendant Sonia had sold ketamine to another customer. That person died the same day. And a family member of that person sent a message to defendant Sonia telling her the cause of death was ketamine.
Why wasn't she charged before? Like, her name is Jasveen Sangha, okay, the ketamine queen. You guys would be surprised how often some of the drug dealers are actually women, okay? I'm just saying, people don't think or see women as being able to deal drugs. It does happen, okay? I mean, they don't call people La Reina del Sur for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you guys got to look up into the story of Grisela Blanco and a bunch of other people, all right?
Nonetheless, defendant Sonia continued selling drugs, including the ketamine that ultimately killed Mr. Perry. That other victim was a person named Cody McLaury. He died in 2019. As a result of this investigation, we have filed a drug distribution charge related to the death of Mr. McLaury. After Mr. Perry died, these defendants tried to cover up what they had done. On October 28th, after reading news reports of Mr. Perry's death, defendant Sonia wrote a text message to defendant Fleming saying, quote, delete all our messages. Likewise, after Mr. Perry's death,
and these people are so stupid. They said delete all messages. You think that if there's a federal investigation happening, they can't just not see the messages? You guys realize text messages, IG, internet messages, nothing that you put out there is ever deleted in real life. You said she's charged, according to NBC, out on $100,000 bond. Is she really out? It wouldn't surprise me if she's out, but really, that's crazy if she's out. I have not heard. I'm just reading the comments, so I'd like to know. I haven't even seen a mugshot of this woman or the people. Wow.
Placentia falsified medical records and notes to try to make it look like what he was doing was legitimate.
It's crazy.
It was not. We filed numerous federal.
So the doctors also try to cover it up. He tried to falsify documents to make it seem like everything that he's doing is legitimate. He knew this shit was coming down. He knew it was coming down.
Charges against the 5 defendants. These charges include conspiracy to distribute ketamine, distribution of ketamine resulting in death,
Wow.
maintaining drug-involved premises for that drug-selling emporium the defendant Sanya had, altering and falsifying records related to a federal investigation for those false medical notes and records that defendant Placentia made, and multiple other drug trafficking counts. Of course, the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The penalties these defendants face are very significant. With regard to defendant Placentia, the statutory maximum sentence he faces is 120 years in federal prison. With regard to defendant Sanya, the statutory maximum she faces is life imprisonment. By filing these extensive and serious charges, we are sending a clear message. If you are in the business of selling dangerous drugs, we will hold you accountable for the deaths that you caused.
Yes.
This is nothing new for us. Since 2022, my office has filed over 60 cases against drug dealers who've caused the death of another person.
All right, let me stop right here, and I'm going to go right to the questions because I know we missed. He was doing the translation in Spanish. I will try my best because there were some questions we couldn't hear.
Jasveen Sangha, Salvador Placentia.
Hold up.
This woman's.
Let me go back. I think it was like right over here.
In our cases, we go where the evidence leads us. We also, Jasveen Sangha, Salvador Placentia. We also defendants Mark Chavez, another medical doctor.
Okay. Man, their internet was bad, which really sucks.
Causaba un riesgo al señor Perry. Por supuesto, 2 de ellos eran doctores.
Okay.
Médicos. Pero, sin embargo, estos acusados siguieron vendiendo ketamina. Los casos son muy importantes porque la vida de cada víctima es importante.
The person that found the Matthew Perry in the hot tub, is that person being charged? That is the question. The attorney then says, I didn't answer that. I didn't hear it. Watch.
Can you hear that? Can you repeat the question?
The person, the assistant that's being charged in this case, is that also the person that found Matthew Perry in the hot tub?
So the personal assistant we charged is defendant Kenneth Iwamasa. He was the one live-in assistant for Mr. Perry.
He didn't answer if it was the assistant that found Matthew Perry. He just said he's the living assistant. That's one of the first questions.
Yes. Yes.
The doctor, when the patient actually died in 2019, did law enforcement look into that death when they found out the patient died?
I can't comment on that. What I can say is that through this investigation, we were able to connect defendant Sanya to that death in 2019.
Okay, so they asked him about the 2019 death, and he can't really give a whole lot of information, I guess.
And file a charge related to that to vindicate the victim, Cody McClure.
Are there any details about this?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, and maybe this is for DA Administrator Milgram, but can you talk a little bit about the line between legitimate ketamine therapy treatment and was, Matthew Perry ever receiving legitimate ketamine therapy treatment? And then when did that cross over? Were the defendants involved in that clinic?
When did Matthew Perry, I think to summarize your question, is like he was receiving treatment, ketamine treatment, but when did it cross over to him, like, getting this kind of substance from these dealers at this point?
So let me say this. In this case, we are not talking about legitimate ketamine treatment. We're talking about 2 doctors who abused the trust they had, abused their licenses to put another person's life at risk.
Yes.
5 defendants who, as I mentioned, knew what they were doing was wrong. In fact, one of them had sold ketamine that resulted in the death of another person in 2019.
Yes.
Nothing about what we see today was legitimate, and that's why we filed criminal charges. Yes.
Is this the beginning of an enforcement effort specifically against ketamine? I know you mentioned past cases, the 60 cases, and DA mentioned it as well. Is there going to be a focus specifically on ketamine?
I think what you've seen is that this is not the beginning, but a continuation of an enforcement effort against synthetic drugs of all kinds. Synthetic drugs, ketamine, but also methamphetamine, fentanyl, are killing people each and every day. We in law enforcement and with the U.S. Attorney's Office are on a campaign to address this and send a message that if you sell drugs, it results in the death of another person, the consequences will be severe.
Amy, she's not the doctor. She's just the dealer. She's the provider of the drugs. Plasencia and Sanchez are the ones, the doctor. Jasvina is not. She's just the dealer. She happened to get charged, but there's two doctors. There's Dr. Mark Chavez, and I'll show you guys. It's on their website, okay? So Kenneth is the assistant. I can't even say his last name, who's 59, who conspired with the dealer, the ketamine queen, and Fleming, another dealer, and Plasencia, the doctor, another doctor, to illegally obtain ketamine and distribute it to Matthew Perry. Kenneth, who pleaded guilty on August 7th to one count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine causing death, admitted to repeatedly injecting Matthew Perry with ketamine without a medical license, including performing multiple injections on Perry on October 28th, the day he died. So his assistant, who doesn't have a medical license, was getting the drugs and also injecting him with the drugs. I mean, I'm surprised that wow. It was just crazy. Even the details. Then it says Dr. Mark Chavez, a physician who agreed to plead guilty to one count of conspiracy, distributed the ketamine. Okay. And Chavez admitted in his plea agreement to selling ketamine to Plasencia, including ketamine that he had diverted from his former ketamine clinic. Chavez also obtained additional ketamine to transfer to Plasencia by making false representation to a whole ketamine distributor and by submitting fraudulent prescriptions in the name of a former patient without that patient's knowledge. So they were using other people, other patients' information to get the ketamine to Matthew Perry. Like this is how intense it was. Is it just repeating it? Yeah, it's just repeating everything that I said in English. He said it in Spanish. It's nothing new. I might like go back to the questions in Spanish just so I could tell you guys what they're asking, but he basically answered everything. There's nothing new in Spanish to English other than the language, guys.
Hay dos doctores que son los acusados en este caso, el doctor Plasencia y el doctor Chavez.
Okay, so the lady asked, my goodness, and they're just not near a mic, guys, so it's kind of hard to listen to her. But she's asking details about the people that were arrested. She says, ¿me pueden decir de los doctores que arrestaron? And then he's responding, hay dos doctores, two doctors, Dr. Plasencia and Dr. Chavez.
Hay dos doctores que son los acusados en este caso, el doctor Plasencia y el doctor Chavez. Los dos están acusados en este caso. El doctor Plasencia fue arrestado hoy en la mañana. El doctor Chavez ya ha sido preso y también ya ha declarado su culpabilidad.
He's just repeating, saying that Dr. Chavez was arrested on earlier in the week, and then the other one was just arrested and made a plea. That's all he's saying. Nothing different than what he said in English.
So with regard to defendant Sangha, that search warrant was executed earlier this year. During that search, as I mentioned, we found not just 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax, and other illegally prescribed drugs.
Crazy.
Drug selling paraphernalia. As I mentioned, it was a drug selling emporium. You have your hand up in the middle. I've mentioned the defendants in this case. We have 5 defendants. The lead defendants are defendants Jasveen Sangha, Salvador Plasencia. We also have defendants Mark Chavez, another medical doctor. We have defendant Kenneth Iwamasa and defendant Eric Fleming. We look at the evidence. We see where that goes. We don't charge people based on whether it's celebrities or not celebrities. We charge them based on the evidence.
Hold up. I have to stop right here. Entertainment Tonight. Are you brand new? Entertainment Tonight's like, are there any other celebrities that have been arrested in addition to what's going on? And he's like, I've mentioned the 5 people that we are looking at or we've charged. That's it. We don't care about celebrities or not. I have to, I love the shade out of this. But it's the fact that you knew it was Entertainment Tonight who had that question, right? This Entertainment Tonight. This is Linda from Entertainment Tonight. I'm just wondering if you have, other celebrity, related arrests with this other arrest. And he's looking at her like, no, dude, sit down. Sit down, Linda. It wasn't the other celebrities. I cannot.
I was getting at before is in the autopsy report that was made public about his death, there were two physicians who were listed as being involved in Mr. Perry's treatment prior to his death. One of them was involved in what appeared to be legitimate therapeutic use of ketamine. Is there any indication that the people who were doing the off-label recreational use were connected with the legitimate therapy he was getting at any point?
So what I'll tell you is, before we get to your second, what I'll tell you is that in our cases, we go where the evidence leads us. We all
Off-label. He asked about off-label ketamine. I'm just saying. Yeah, her name, Kim. Her name is Linda, and she works for Entertainment Tonight. Shout out to all my beautiful Lindas. Lisa Marie, thank you for becoming a member. And this is not Linda with an I. It's Linda with a Y. It's Linda with a Y. I just thought that was so funny how he answered her. He said, listen, it don't matter if it's a celebrity or not. If they need to be arrested, they're going to be arrested. Sit down, Linda with a Y. You said it. No. No. Okay. So what is it? The queen of ketamine queen is not the doctor. Ketamine queen is the dealer. So you got 5 people. Okay. 2 of which are doctors. One of them is a dealer by the name of, I think, Eric Fleming. And then this one is the ketamine queen, Jasveen. Okay. And then you have the assistant. The assistant essentially was providing all the ketamine from these people over here to Matthew Perry. He was injecting Matthew Perry allegedly based on what they've put out there. So the ketamine queen lady was providing ketamine, but in addition to that, also there were the 2 doctors that were providing him as well. So he was getting ketamine from different areas, but all of these people were working together to give it to Matthew Perry. That's what it was. You said, oh my God, Kelly, thank you for being a member for 8 months. Yes, rest in peace, Matthew Perry. Guys, like, regardless, let me go back. Somebody said something earlier in the live, okay? And that said, well, if he chose to take it, I mean, when you're in the throes of addiction, you don't always know that you're being targeted, right? If anything, that makes you vulnerable. So I definitely feel like this man fell prey to this group of people, which were doctors, people that you're supposed to trust in positions, and then your very own assistant, and they were targeted for money. And they have all these text messages and all these conversations to prove that. So it don't matter if it's Matthew Perry or some other person, but honestly, Matthew Perry felt victim to these people. So for those that were earlier saying, well, why are we talking? I don't care about celebrities. Listen, that's fine. But people can also fall victim to such situations. And for that, I have a lot of empathy for Matthew Perry and for his family and for those that, were close to him because of that. Okay. That's just how I feel. You said, do you recall the assistant's previous story? I think I recall. I don't remember. Now I'm going to look into that. Jamie, do me a favor. If you find any articles on that, shoot me an email, please, and thank you. It is. It's just so sad, and that's why I have a lot of empathy. She was the dealer to the doctors, and the doctors gave it to the assistant who gave it to Matthew. Correct, Ingrid. Thank you. That's a beautiful breakdown there. But yeah, let's continue with the questions, okay?
We also respect patient privacy. What I will say is an autopsy was conducted. That autopsy showed Mr. Perry died as a result of the acute effects of ketamine. I won't go into further detail about Mr. Perry's personal history.
Okay.
Yes.
And then were any of the 5 charged on your radar prior to Perry's overdose?
I can't comment on that. What I will say is the investigation is ongoing, but what we're announcing today are serious federal charges against these 5 defendants, supported by an extensive investigation.
Yes.
This woman had been patiently had her hand up. Yes. Defendant Chavez is a defendant in this case. We filed this morning a plea agreement for defendant Chavez. So he's already not entered, but we have a filed plea agreement for him. 2 other defendants, defendant Iwa Massa, have also signed plea agreements. That plea agreement has been entered. And defendant Fleming has signed a plea agreement. That plea agreement has been entered. As I mentioned, the 2 lead defendants in this case are defendants Placentia and defendant Sanya, who were arrested this morning.
So
yes, sir.
All these people sign plea deals. Mm.
No, there's the patient man behind you. Yes, ma'am.
Fiscal, ¿nos puede identificar a los 5 detenidos y nos puede relacionar cómo comenzó la investigación con la reina de la ketamina en el 2019?
So the reporter is asking, can you identify the 5 people that were charged, and how did you guys come about the charges?
Sí, hay 5 acusados. Y ya nombré los acusados. Hoy en la mañana, 2 fueron
He said that there's 5 accused, and we've already named the accused.
arrestados. Fue la acusada Sanya y el acusado Plasencia, que fue un doctor médico. Yes.
Yeah, there were reports this morning that the investigation could uncover other celebrities who may have been buying from this same network. Is that accurate? Can you give us any sense of the customers that they've been?
So I can't comment on reports that are out there, their accuracy or inaccuracy. What I can tell you are the facts that we developed through our investigation. Those facts are what I've related to you this morning. Yes.
You mentioned the queen of ketamine out of North Hollywood. What does that actually mean? How big was the network of people to whom she was selling narcotics, and specifically ketamine?
What I can say about defendant Sanya, known as the ketamine queen, was that she was a major source of supply for ketamine to others, as well as Mr. Perry. I think
She is he's answering it now, Junebug. She was a supplier.
the fact that we searched her house and found a drug selling emporium, including 80 vials of ketamine, would strongly suggest she was selling to many other individuals.
Can you give a number? Dozens, tens?
I cannot, unfortunately, no.
The evidence required is gone.
Let me, the gentleman there in the back.
What has been Matthew Perry's family's reaction to the news coming out?
So I won't comment on specific statements made by victims' families. We value confidentiality. What I will say is that the work of our office is victim-driven. We work with victims, including their families, each and every day, not just on this case, but on all our cases, including the over 60 death-resulting cases I mentioned earlier. We have been in communication, and I will leave it at that.
Wow.
Were all the defendants American citizens, and where were they sourcing their drugs?
What I can say is that all the defendants, actually, I can't comment on citizenship at this time. I can't comment on the sourcing either. I've given you the facts in terms of the drug selling. Yes, sir.
It's so hard to hear the damn
Sure. It was
questions.
through the investigation in this case, as the investigators did a thorough job, followed every lead, pulled every string to see what had occurred. They learned about the extent of defendant Sanya's criminal conduct and learned about the sale in 2019. And because of that investigation, we have filed a charge related to the death of victim McClory. And that's important because we want to vindicate all victims who suffer these types of tragedies. I'll do 2 more questions. I think, as I mentioned, we've linked her to sales of ketamine, which resulted in at least 2 deaths. We searched her home. We found a drug selling emporium. I can't comment. I can't speculate on things such as what you're suggesting. I will say, in this case, she is facing very significant federal charges, including a charge that carries a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence.
That's crazy.
These 5 continuing to sell ketamine or other drugs after Perry's death?
I can't comment on that in terms of where they were selling.
No, like in terms of afterwards.
What I can say is that we searched the home of one of the defendants following Mr. Perry's death. She had 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills of methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And she had already killed somebody. Okay, let me go back here. How come we don't have a mugshot of these people? I'm trying to figure this out. This information should be available for everyone. So for those that are trying to understand, so we have 5 defendants total, including 2 doctors that have been charged in this matter. Okay. We have the defendants arrested today are charged in an 18-count indictment returned on Wednesday with distributing ketamine to Perry during the final weeks of his life. So Jasveen, the ketamine queen of North Hollywood, that's what she's called. You know somebody's going to make a freaking movie about that. Even the name, the ketamine queen of North Hollywood. I mean, we got La Reina del Sur. Somebody's going to, I'm just telling you the way people get these names, that it's I don't know. Is that supposed to be a badge of honor, I guess? I don't know. So Dr. Salvador Plasencia, okay, who goes by Dr. P. So the Queen and Dr. Plasencia are charged with 1 count of conspiracy. We read that. Okay, so The Queen and Placencia are expected to be arraigned later today in the United States District Court in Los Angeles. These defendants cared more about profiting off of Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. All right. Yeah, and not just one, man, like more than one doctor. The three other defendants are Eric Fleming, 54, who pleaded guilty on August 8th. So he pleaded guilty on August 8th to one count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and one count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death. Fleming admitted in court documents that he distributed the ketamine that killed Perry. He further admitted to obtaining the ketamine from a source, which was the queen of the ketamine, okay? And distributing 50 vials of ketamine to Perry's live-in assistant, the assistant, okay? By the name of Kenneth Iwamasa. I think that's how you say his last name. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. And so then he's also the assistant is charged. And Dr. Mark Chavez, who's a physician from San Diego, who's also been pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy. These people are not going to be able to practice medicine. I mean, I just like, who would want them to practice medicine if this is what they do? If this is what they've done? Like, are you kidding me? And are we sure that Matthew Perry is the only victim out there? I mean, clearly they've killed somebody else, you know, the queen of ketamine. But this can't be the only time that they got greedy. This can't be the only time that they got greedy and it didn't hurt somebody else or another family or whatsoever. This is crazy, guys. Yes. So I'm looking, do we have a mugshot? I'm just saying, like, somebody needs to put a name on. Yeah, let's put a face on this. And I mean, if you guys find a mugshot, let me know. I'm trying to see if we can get a mugshot on the queen, what they called Jasveen Sangha. Nothing, no mugshot yet. We got some pictures so far. Hold up, is this it? Oh shit, we got pictures. Y'all want to see them? Okay, here we go. Hold up. I got pictures now. Hold up. Where are they at? Look at all this. Look at all this here. And then look at all those vials and they're showing text messages. Look at this. Here you go. This woman is who they call the queen of ketamine, and there's Dr. Salvador Plasencia. This is TMZ just reported this. They said Matthew Perry's death, 2 doctors, Perry's assistants, ketamine queen arrested. I wonder how much this moron will pay. This is what they said. Okay, so we saw this. The assistant, Eric Fleming, who prosecutors say helped broker the deal, the drug deal, already copped plea deals. We know this. Okay, let me go back. Fleming, meanwhile, pled guilty to a pair of charges: conspiracy of distributing ketamine. We've read that. They face up to, the assistant can face up to 15 years behind bars, and Fleming was staring down at 25-year prison sentence. Okay, law enforcement authorities say a broad underground criminal network was responsible for supplying Matthew Perry with the ketamine that led to his death. 2 medical doctors, Perry's live-in assistant, someone referred to as a ketamine queen, has been charged with illegally conspiring to provide the drugs to the Friends actor. Look at all this. Let me just remove myself so you guys can see this, okay? Authorities say that the 5 defendants all knew Perry was in the throes of addiction from September 2023 to the time of his death in October 28th of 2023, but cared more about making money off of him than his well-being. Look, this is what the message says. This is what they look like. She sells them all day. She won't go less than 250. Let me see if I can borrow to buy one CB test. But if he likes it, which I'm confident he will, he has to pay me back. One defendant sent an email asking, I wonder how much this moron will pay for ketamine. Look at this. Pictures. Perry's assistant, Kenneth, allegedly administered more than 20 shots of ketamine in the last 4 days of Perry's life. This at a time where Kenneth allegedly knew Perry was spiraling out of control. This is the, look at it, like young drug dealer. I don't know how old this woman is. I'm assuming she's young. What do you guys think? 30s? Early 30s, late 20s? What do you guys think? It's oh my God. And then this is Dr. Salvador Plasencia. Jasveen, aka the ketamine queen, allegedly sold the fatal dose. And it was not the first time she's killed somebody. It was not the first time she killed somebody, you guys. That is crazy. Her home was searched and it looked like a drug emporium with 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of meth, pills, coke, Xanax, and other drug paraphernalia. Her name, when I Googled it before the press, it didn't come up. I'm trying to figure out, like, clearly she's in the Hollywood scene. You guys, like, be aware of these damn doctors. I cannot. But apparently, she said, no, that's 40s. Is she in her 40s? How old is this lady? Anyways, let's keep looking. This is the first time seeing a picture of her. So her home was searched and it looked like the 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of meth pills. We read that. Prosecutors say Eric Fleming was a drug broker who delivered the ketamine from the stash house. Okay. Sorry, guys. I got somebody at my door. He threw in ketamine lollipops as an add-on for the large purchase. Oh my gosh. Authorities say the defendant tried to cover up what they were doing with code, calling it Dr. Pepper cans and butts. And then remember when the attorney said that there was a message that told everybody to delete all the messages? He said, delete our messages. Like, you're an idiot. Like, you really think. And then they said, yes, you really think that the shit's going to go away. After learning of Perry's death, Sangha sent out an alarm to Fleming to delete our messages. So they knew he died. And then she tells everybody, delete our messages. And he replies with, yes. I cannot. She's in her 40s? I don't even know I have no words. So this is nothing new here. I have no words, y'all. I'm gonna I gotta head out. Shout out to the 500 people on Twitter. Thank you guys for being here. And shout out to all of you guys on YouTube. Like, oh my God. Definitely keep reporting on this story. And she's 41. Do we have an age? Mars says he's 41. Peg, thank you so much for the $9.99, guys. Thank you. Y'all hit the like button. Thank you so much. It's, coming up here and bringing all the news to you guys and collecting that. I appreciate it. Support my channel by hitting the like. Let me also shout out somebody. Thank you so much, Diane, for blessing us on the Cash App. You are amazing. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. I gotta head out because I gotta go tend to baby bunny. But shout out to you. Thank you, Amber, for stopping by. Can you get the pic of the assistant? I don't know. I'm gonna try. I know I got some people in my email right now. Baby bunny is tearing up the place. Let me just say that. We gotta talk, man. We gotta do. These people are crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. That. Okay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you guys on the next one. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And again, we'll keep pushing the news and keep talking and bringing awareness to these issues. Okay. And all these Hollywood people that are running these undercover drug stuff, we need to expose it. All right. Bye, guys.